My name is McCarney, and I'm representing one of the non-traditional teaching programs, which is the PLACE Corps, which stands for Partners in Los Angeles Catholic Education. If you saw one of the white brochures, it's part of the University Consortium for Catholic Education, just like ACE, which is probably the best known of those programs, and a number of others. I graduated from St. Ben's in 2002, and my trek to this was a little bit roundabout because I swore all through high school and college I would never be a high school teacher. Absolutely 100% I didn't want to teach high school. I might teach college, but there's no way I was going to teach high school. I worked for 4 years at the admission office here at St. Ben's and St. John's. And as I was working in admission, I thought, I ran into a lot of students who really wanted to go to college, really were focused on college, but didn't necessarily have the skills and the preparation that they needed. And all I could do was help them with the application. And I could help them decide if St. Ben's, St. John's was the right fit, but I couldn't help them to be prepared or not prepared for college. And so I started thinking about doing some kind of a service program, teaching program. And at that point, I didn't even know if there was something that let me do this because I didn't have a teaching degree. So I looked at Teach for America for a while, but that wasn't the right fit because I was really looking for something that was faith-based and something that had a little bit more support than a Teach for America, which is more of an individual experience. So I ran into the PLACE Corps, and I also applied to the ACE program. I thought, you know, let's try it. It was exactly what I was looking for. So I moved to Los Angeles, and I was placed in Verbum High School, and yes. All right, he's one of my former students. Because I also recruited for St. Ben's, St. John's unofficially while I was there. Yeah, so anyway, with the PLACE Corps, I lived in community with other teachers. There were 5 different houses of teachers in Los Angeles. My house had 7 different people in the program, which was fantastic because 3 of us taught at Verb. And so as a first-year teacher, it's really stressful, and I could go to the second-year member and say, Katie, what do I do with Stanley? And she says, okay, try this, try this, try this. And then we also took classes for a cost-free master's, and then we also had spirituality things. I loved the program, loved the school, and so after I finished the PLACE Corps, I also stayed out in Los Angeles for 3 more years, so I taught at Verbum for 5 years. And then I just moved back in August, and now I teach at Cristo Rey Jesuit High School in Minneapolis.
Hi, my name is Joe Kane. I graduated from St. John's, St. Ben's in 2009. I just completed 2 years with Teach for America in South Louisiana, which is kind of, if South Louisiana is shaped like or Louisiana is shaped like a shoe, it's definitely the toe part. I was in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. We also placed in New Orleans and in about 45 other places across the United States. I can answer more general questions about Teach for America later, because I was an on-campus recruiter here at St. John's when I was going to school here. I guess a little bit about my placement. I was a middle school special ed teacher, so I taught 6 through 8 math special ed, and the way that I did that was it was called an inclusion-based, so I was kind of that second teacher in the classroom, providing support so we didn't continue to treat students with disabilities by placing them in alternate classrooms, and we tried to mainstream them. I taught at Glen Oaks Middle School, one of the lowest performing schools in Louisiana. That's traditionally what Teach for America places their teachers in, is some of the lowest schools across American rural and urban areas. I did a lot. I was the chair of the special ed department by about month 4. Assistant principal de facto for about 3 weeks when we didn't have one. And principal when my principal was gone, among many other roles that you have to kind of take on as that. I guess some of the other things that Ann brought up that were really great and I want to touch on as well is housing. I lived with other Teach for America Corps members, and I think their friendships rival my St. John, St. Ben's friends, just because of that connection we had. The same stories of like, oh my God, a kid threw a chair today, what do I do? Not that that happened, but like, like what do I do? This is crazy. And just really enjoying that, that community that comes out of that. And then the way that I guess we kind of did that, I was a political science major, Chinese minor, and one of the things that we do with Teach for America is in different regions we have different programs where maybe you have to go for a master's for the teaching license. In Louisiana, I was in an alternative certification course, and was a participant in that at night. I guess other than that, I can get to more general TFA questions later, and more experiences about my TFA experience as well. What I do now, just quickly, is I work for a program called Get Ready. I just came back this summer, and it's a kind of a college access program, kind of like a Mission Possible on steroids, I guess, if you ever heard of a Mission Possible, where I'm teaching a couple lessons a month and then doing a lot of guidance counseling. And I cycle through with kids from 7th grade to 12th grade, do a lot of parent event, just basically on the nuts and bolts of what college is, how do I pay for it, do I need to go, with first-generation low-income students.
Cool. My name is Silus. I graduated from St. Ben's in 2005. I was a English major with a communications minor, almost. I took quite a few communications classes, but yeah, focused on English. And I was in, right after graduation, I went to Albania with the Peace Corps, and I was a high school English teacher. Peace Corps kind of works in that you have to kind of apply with some sort of kind of, within one of the skill kind of categories. And because of my English degree, and then also 3 out of my 4 summers during college here, I worked with Upward Bound programs. After my freshman year, that first summer, I was actually here at St. Ben's program, and then I spent the next 2 summers out in Laramie, Wyoming, with a Upward Bound program out there. Just kind of went out there on a whim. But I kind of built up my teaching and my leadership experience through that. And then that's kind of what I had to really apply for the Peace Corps for teaching English as a foreign language program. I landed in Albania because I chose the Eastern Europe, Central Asian region, and really from there they place you in the country that has kind of the need, and also based on the timing. So I was placed in Albania, and from there they place you in either a city or a village, and I happened to be placed in a city of about 50,000 people. I made my own curriculum for creative writing classes, and that was my main job. But I also, kind of like you were saying, you kind of find your way into other roles. I helped coach a debate team. I ran English classes for women. You just kind of find yourself doing all sorts of things to stay busy and get involved. And I think the really neat thing about the Peace Corps was I lived with 2 different host families for my first year, which was half of my time there. So a lot of integration, and I learned Albanian, and the Peace Corps is wonderful about putting you through language immersion classes. So yeah, that was my life for 2 years, and then I'm from the Twin Cities area, so I moved back, and now I'm at Target headquarters. So kind of seems like a kind of a stark contrast, but I was lucky enough to land a position, and I've been there for 3.5 years now. I am currently on the Target.com team, and I actually lead a team of about 15 people. So I have a lot of leadership, and also actually a lot of teaching is involved in my current role. So that kind of keeps my love and interest for people and teaching in place, which I feel pretty fortunate for. Yeah, Target actually, like I said, I've been there for 3.5 years, but it's a company that has a ton of different departments. So I'm actually right now looking at getting into an actual, we have like a training department that I'm currently interested in, and my Peace Corps experience definitely kind of gave me that background to be competitive to get into Target. So yeah, definitely open to talking more details about the Peace Corps and my experience later. That's me.
Let's see. So I'm Tom. How many folks are interested in the JET program, Japanese Exchange Teaching Program? Anyone? Yes. Okay, cool. College possible? Admission possible? Anyone? All right. So I've done. First, I did College Possible. I'll just speak to it, just because if you apply to Teach for America and you're not accepted, maybe College Possible, like myself, would be a good backup option. Or even if you apply to Peace Corps and are not accepted, College Possible. But College Possible is right here. It just changed names this month in January. It used to be called Admission Possible. So I did that. I graduated in '09 with Joe. My educational background is I was a communication major, peace studies, and philosophy minors here at St. John's. I would have continued taking classes for another 4 years if I could have, but I had to graduate. So upon graduation, I ended up at St. Louis Park High School. I'm from rural Minnesota and ended up in the city working with College Possible, which helps promising low-income students gain admittance or access to college. So I'm sure you've learned all about kind of systematic oppression in your coursework here at St. John's or St. Ben's, but there's a whole lot of barriers that might prevent someone from getting into, having this privilege to go to college. So it's just better if I explain a typical day with College Possible. I served with about 60 other coaches. I was paired with another coach. We're called coaches. We didn't wear whistles. At St. Louis Park High School, and we had a cohort of about 40 students that we were responsible for teaching an after-school program twice a week to students. I was an ACT Kaplan coach and ACT SAT prep to help students in their junior year get that ACT score that they needed to get accepted into a college. And then senior year was more focused on applying to scholarships, applying for colleges, and getting accepted. So Admission Possible, I absolutely loved it. If you're interested, I'd love to talk more with you about it. It's expanded from 18 schools in Minnesota to 5 schools in Wisconsin to 2 schools in Omaha, Nebraska as of this year. 2 years ago, our founder, Jim McCorkle, got to meet with President Obama at a nonprofit jobs fair, and Obama said, I want to see this program in all 50 states. So that was kind of a get-go to College Possible to kind of keep expanding. So there's great expansion going on right there, and if education and teaching is not quite your thing, but maybe like development work or like nonprofit development work, which is a very valuable skill, you can do an AmeriCorps Vista position with development, or you can use your communication major and do like media and marketing with Admission Possible. So there's a lot of different areas that you could fit in there. So I encourage you to check it out. My more exotic position was with JET, Japan Exchange Teaching Program. I just got back this August. From a year in Hokkaido, Japan. 2 years ago, I had no idea where Hokkaido was, and I had no idea that I'd end up in Japan, but the JET program, it's a very long application process, and the idea is just to make sure that you're kind of ready and committed to kind of succeed wherever you're placed. So I worked at 4 different high schools, took the train to all the different high schools. It was a great experience. I could talk more about it if you JET folks are interested, but it sounds like most of you are not. But yeah, just please ask us questions.
Yeah, Tom.
That's why you're here.
Yep. But I don't know. I did one of these maybe 2 months ago, and just please ask us questions and engage us, because we are here to help and to provide any assistance that we possibly can to the St. John's and St. Ben's community. So.
As you can tell, we're all a little enthusiastic about what we did in our teaching years. My name is Katie McCarney. I actually currently right now work in the admission office at St. Ben's, St. John's. I graduated from St. Ben's in 2004, and the year after I graduated, I spent an entire year teaching in China. So the program that I went with was called the Maryknoll China Teachers Program, but there are several different programs and ways to go and teach in China. I was a double major in history and art history, and the common theme between both of those that always had me fascinated was the idea of culture and different cultures. So my goal with that year after graduation was to find an experience where I could just completely immerse myself in a culture that was so different than anything I had ever experienced. I had studied abroad on the Greco-Roman program as a student, but in the back of my mind already had this idea that I would go to China. I'm one of the many, many people that Dr. Richard Bohr in the Asian Studies and History Department has inspired to go to China. So in the teaching that I did there, I was placed in a city, a small little Chinese city of only 600,000 people called Jiangmen. It was in the southeast corner of China, the Guangdong province, and it was about 2.5 hours from Hong Kong. I taught at a place called Wuyi University. It's a school that had about 15,000 students, and I taught 6 classes. Each one met once a week, so my teaching load was really only about 18 to 20 hours. I had never taught before and created all of my own curriculum for the classes that I taught. Most of them were oral English classes, so I knew very little Chinese going. I'd never taken a Chinese class, but that really wasn't even the point. I was teaching entirely in English, and I was teaching students who had already had the basics of English. They were college students already, but as any of you know, if you've studied a foreign language, the biggest jump is going from reading and writing to actually being able to speak. So in all of my oral English classes, we had debates, we had discussions, we did skits, we played games, anything that would get them to forget about how nervous they were to speak. You know, I really encourage students to have fun with it. So when we were discussing the ways to describe clothing, instead of just talking about that, I had one class that was entirely women. We had a fashion show, so one person would entirely figure out how to describe their partner's outfit. We moved all the chairs, we had a runway down the middle, and we had a fashion show in class. So things like that. I was always trying to think outside the box. They also had me teach a film class and a class on the American culture, so that really kept me kind of guessing as far as what my next lessons would be throughout the year. But I lived in an apartment right on campus. They provided housing. That's pretty typical at most Chinese universities. The teachers will live right on campus. So that was something I didn't have to worry about. There were about 6 foreign teachers at that school. Most of them were from Maryknoll, so I had other people to go to and talk to about advice on how to teach. Similarly, I kind of got pulled into many other roles. I coached the English speaking team, was a judge for the English singing contest. I ended up as a fashion model for their school of fashion design, and I was in a commercial for a pizza restaurant, and you name it. And we were some of very few foreigners in the city, so we were kind of in an unusual position. The way that the calendar year worked, they have a quite long break between 2 semesters, because that's when the Chinese New Year falls. So I had about 2 months to travel all over China, and I traveled with another Benny alum who was teaching that year. So that was another absolute highlight of the year. I could have easily spent another year teaching. I loved the people that I got to know, really got to know the students that I worked with pretty closely. I decided to come back and take this job in the admission office, and one of the ways that I can tell that my year in China has helped, they gave me a position in the admission office that involves a lot of travel around the United States, and they've also sent me on some international admission trips back to Seoul, South Korea, to the Philippines, and to Trinidad. So they must have trusted the travel experience I got through this. I also actually, to put in a plug for something else, there's a Johnny alum who's teaching in South Korea, and he sent me some information about teaching in South Korea that I have today with me as well. So I'll refer that on to him. It's at the table back there in case you're interested in South Korea.
Any questions that just have for our panelists? Just go up here first.
Hello, my name is Gretchen Sitzer. I'm a sophomore, and I have a question for Anne. With PLACE, how many years is the program, and who is the degree through? You mentioned master's courses. It's a master's degree.
Yes, it is a 2-year program, and so it starts in the summer, and you take 2 courses in the summer, an intro to teaching course, and then kind of one of your theory courses. The intro to teaching course is the crash course of, here you go, this is what you need to start your year. And then you start teaching right away as a full classroom teacher. You'll take 2 classes per semester that first year, 2 more classes the next summer, and then finish up in the second year. And at the end of that second year, you'll have a master's degree in education through Loyola Marymount University. And it can be, if you haven't taught before, typically it's either elementary education or secondary education, and the secondary education is in a particular discipline. If you have taught before, you can get a literacy credential and master's, or you can do special education. So you do have options. And like I said, it's through Loyola Marymount. You're welcome.
I know one of you said you studied abroad in Roman Greco, I think. How, or if any of you other ones studied abroad, how did that affect your experience?
I think just making you more comfortable in new experiences. You know, I went to Los Angeles. I'd never been there before. I interviewed for the program. I'd never lived in a town bigger than St. Joe. And then I moved to Los Angeles. And, you know, as a teacher, you're always kind of thinking on the fly. You know, your lesson doesn't work. Okay, now what am I going to do? And that's sort of similar to the way you have to become when you're traveling for a semester and when you're studying and living in a new city. You know, I didn't understand the word for that. I don't know where I am. Okay, now what do I do? So it's really good preparation in both ways, I think.
I think too, with having gone on the Greco-Roman program first, it made me a much more confident traveler. So I think if I hadn't done that and spent a semester with an entire group and a professor, gradually getting comfortable with that idea of travel, I don't know that I would have been daring enough to spend a whole year in China. But by that point, I was just absolutely excited for it, and I was ready for it because of that study abroad experience.
Lastly, I'll add, for me, it made you, as you both have touched on, it made you want those experiences and enrich yourself in the community, you know, and immerse yourself in the community. You know, I didn't shy away from things because I knew that through my study abroad experience, the best times were often those, like, first initial awkward, like, hey, can I come? And then, like, when you actually did, like, you made really great friends and you became part of that community. And I think that was one of the highlights is you became also more effective through that way. Because you were part of the community, you had a pull or a say at the table that I don't think others who didn't have that experience would. I went to China.
I was on the Salzburg study abroad trip, and it was a little different for my year. I think all of the previous years they had put all of the St. Ben's, St. John's students in like one. It was almost like a hotel setting. And then starting with my year, we were all broken up a little bit around the city, and myself and it was like me and 4 or 5 other St. Ben's, St. John's students. We were put in this like international dorm, and I had an Austrian roommate, but one of my St. Ben's friends had a roommate from China, and that absolutely sparked this, you know, just, okay, immerse yourself and figure out how to be resilient and adaptable and just make things happen and make things work and have fun with it.
I as well studied abroad in China, and it did have like a direct influence on why I did the JET program. The reason I waited a year is my partner was from St. Ben's here, and she also wanted to go abroad, so we both kind of applied to many different countries and ended up in Japan. But nevertheless, we were looking at Asia because that's where I wanted to get back to and travel some more. So, yeah.
I know you were hesitant to go into the JET program in detail before. I'm just wondering if you could expand on your experience there, just what the application process is like in general.
Okay, you've first year students. Anyone? Yeah, awesome. Seniors? All right, juniors, cool. Application process. Application process it's very long. It's a 7-month application process, and you have to stick with it the whole time. The interview, I mean, we can talk about this afterwards, but like just give you some interview topics and whatnot when you go out in February for your interview. The idea is, what, 12,000 people apply, 2,000 people go from all around the world, and they're looking for other countries than just like the U.S. to go. So a lot of the people that lived in my town were from, there was 5 other foreigners, like Australia, Canadian, I don't know, a few New Zealand folk. But yeah, we can talk about applications specifically unless people want to be bored to death with the interview. So yeah, we'll talk afterwards.
I'm Ann Dean, I'm a sophomore. I was wondering, did it cost you to be a part of these programs? Were you compensated? How did that work as far as like coming out even or what?
Sure.
I'll go first on that one. I think there's a common misconception about Teach for America that it is like a volunteer experience or an internship or something like that. No, I was paid.
Get that out there.
I just want to put that out there. Like, I was paid. I had health insurance. I had benefits. Like, I have a retirement plan through Louisiana. Like, it is, you are officially an employee of that district. Teach for America is basically like the hiring service that gets awesome people to apply, gets awesome people accepted, trains you up, and then says you are an employee of that district. So I was not an employee of Teach for America. I was an employee of Baton Rouge, ABR, Advanced Baton Rouge Charter System. So I got paid. And it was a really competitive starting salary to what my friends who had gone to Target or Best Buy or any other kind of, you know, straight out of college career experience. It was very comparable. I will say this though, I moved to Louisiana and there are a lot of startup costs with that. But I think a lot of those startup costs are things that are associated with just graduating from college. You know, like I had to buy a car, still paying that off. Had to, you know, like buy furniture. Had to do like, and you know, the moving costs of getting down there. But one of the things that is really, really beneficial about Teach America is they have really great transitional funding. That it's not going to discourage you to go to the places of the highest need for education in this country. Where I had a lot of those transition costs either in a loan or just a non. I didn't have to pay back a grant, and I think that kind of money was really helpful for me in making the decision to go down to Louisiana versus maybe trying to do Teach for America here in the Twin Cities or Chicago or something like that. And that was a really great aspect of the program to me was, you know, I really get to be a part of an incredible mission to end the achievement gap here, but I also get to not worry about, you know, where's my next meal or something like that that comes from other volunteer experiences.
Place Corps is considered a teacher service program, but we also got paid. We got half of our salary. We also were not employed by Place Corps, but again, they're like the matching service and the support service. So I was an employee of Verbum Dei High School, and I was an employee of the Archdiocese of Los Angeles. They did pay us half our salary, and the other half went to Place Corps. But our housing was free, and our food was free, and our master's degree was free. So when I finished and I was living on my own, I actually was paying more of my salary out. I had more money when I was in Place Corps than when I was immediately out of Place Corps. So you'll be fine, and there were some great benefits. I mean, you know, it really works you. You earn every penny.
Oh, yeah.
But it's worth it.
That's an awesome question, and I love my experience with this. With College Possible, AmeriCorps volunteer, so $13,000 a year is what you make as an AmeriCorps volunteer, plus a like $5,700 educational stipend that you can use. Yeah. So you're making poverty line. You qualify for food stamps if you want to use them, and you're with 70 other college grads from around Minnesota that are also making nothing. Right, and you get really creative, but like I was so active in the cities because so many people, you know, people would give me Twins tickets, we'd get discount Guthrie tickets, we'd get, you know, people would be like, oh, you're with AmeriCorps, like, I mean, organizations would give tickets to our program to like on Friday at work, we'd be like free email to go to the Guthrie and whatnot. So from going to, you know, I really enjoyed that experience and I treasure that experience of not making really anything, just enough to get by for the year. And then Jet, on the other hand, this year the salary is like $53,000. Housing, and you can look this up online, that's why I'm sharing it. Housing is covered, it's subsidized through the school. It's great. It's great. You know, like the kind of financial reasons behind Jet are great. And then when you look at other programs like Interact or a lot of Korea programs, you're not making as much. But that being said, Japan is a very expensive country to live in. You know, an apple is like $1.50. So you have to keep that in mind and how frugal you can be when you go there to save money. So, yeah, great question. And that helped paid for, I didn't say that before, I'm in graduate school currently at the U of M. So, you know, using my Jet money, I was able to continue my education as well. So.
My program in China was a volunteer program. So on this end, I made a stipend of about $550 a month, It was equivalent actually to an intro Chinese teacher salary though. The biggest difference is the fact that the Chinese economy is so different than the US economy. So on this end, because I was a volunteer, I was able to defer my college loans. They just stayed on ice. I didn't have to pay any interest until 6 months after I got back, so that was one thing I didn't have to worry about at all. But then when I was in China, my expenses were so low that even though I only made about $500 a month, my housing was taken care of. All of my expenses were so cheap. I could eat an entire lunch for 75 cents. From everything that I had saved, just the money I saved from what I was making in the first semester, I traveled for 2 months in China. From the money I saved from my second semester, I flew to visit some friends teaching in Japan. When I was in Japan, I had to take out some money and I had saved because it was a little more expensive. But I actually think I probably came home with about what I left with, even though I was doing it as a volunteer.
Peace Corps really similar in that you're paid a very comparable salary to your coworkers, which really in the end helps you assimilate and blend in, because you're not this American who stands out with a lot of things and money. So I really appreciated that there's just this really kind of nice ability then to blend in. Your plane ticket to your country, you know, when you fly over there, and then getting home at the end of your 2 years is paid for. Great medical and dental coverage in country. So those things you feel really well taken care of. And I too felt like, I mean, I was able to, my apartment was still very nice. I was able to eat what I wanted, all of those things. But yeah, extra travel, anything extra beyond that. I went over there with 39 other Peace Corps volunteers, and everyone, I mean, there was a broad spectrum of people who would use their vacation time to travel all over the place, or some people didn't leave Albania once during the 2 years. So it was kind of neat that you could you know, choose your adventure in that aspect.
My program also covered health insurance. That was a big question I was asking before I left, so I'll mention that too.
Japan has national health care. It's great.
And plug for the Peace Corps, if you finish your 2 years, you get, I think it was maybe after tax, a little less than $8,000 as a readjustment. They call it like a readjustment fee. And one more plug is Masters International, I believe. I didn't do it, but if you finish your 2-year commitment, you are able to choose from a variety of master's programs around the country for a very reduced price when you get back. So that's good too.
My name is Dan Cahill. I'm a sophomore. My question is just, we have varying degrees of work experience before applying for the program, so I just want to know, in your opinion, did that work experience help yourself in the application? Did it make you a better applicant? And if you could go back, would you do it sooner or later, or what would you do?
I can start with, I was in the Peace Corps, and again, I went over there with 39 other people. I, myself, was pretty fresh out of college, but there was an amazing array of, we had people in their, you know, right out of college, in their 30s, their 40s, people who had had this corporate career that just put that behind them and joined the Peace Corps. There was a woman who was 78 years old in my group as well. So I guess I just put that out there to say definitely it's a program that you can do really at any point of your life. I'm glad I did it right out of college. I think it does get progressively harder to put your car someplace or sell your house, or, you know, those things that you start to accumulate here. Going into it with not a ton of like traditional work experience, I think being young, you're up for, again, that being resilient and adaptable. And if you're going somewhere with a foreign language, I think there is some truth to be said that you're just that much more kind of, you can really pick it up and kind of go with it.
Very similar. Like I graduated in May, and by June I was down in Louisiana doing the summer training. I think one of the really cool things about going to Teach America right after college, and many people do in Teach America, although there's a lot more of young professionals up to like 30, but we had a 6-year-old guy in our group as well, was the idea that they gave me and they developed me. I had a lot of professional development that gave me a lot of skills that in other positions that I've gone to since I finished Teach America, and when I talk to employees or other Johnnies or Bennies who are, you know, maybe part of the alumni network, and they say, what we really value about your Teach for America experience is that they develop you as a person. And I really felt that I was developed as a leader, because in front of the classroom we can all say that we are the leaders of our classroom, and you have to really embody that. And I think that Teach for America has an incredible way of developing you as a leader, that no matter if you stay in the classroom or if you go on to work on other things that affect children or the achievement gap and different things around education and life, you're a leader. And I think that's a really valuable quality that Teach for America does. Just, I guess to speak to, I really wanted to touch on this to different grade levels to this tonight as well. Get involved. You know, I think we might not have had any like professional work experience, if you will, like right out of college, but you know, I was involved with the McCarthy Center. I was involved with the Student Center. I went on a study abroad. I had a job all 4 years. Like, you have to show that you have leadership talent now. And this is a really safe spot to develop those qualities, where you might go out on a limb and say, hey, I want to be the leader of this club. And we might crash and burn. We might not get funding this year. But I learned a ton from that. And that's something that you can bounce back from and show resilience. And I think one of the qualities that Teach for America looks for is this idea of grit. It's kind of like perseverance. Like, do you have that it quality that says, you know what, no matter how hard this gets, I'm gonna push through this, and I'm going to make something positive of this situation, and do it now. You know, do it while there's still opportunities to do it. Do it while, you know, you don't have to worry about other things, and really develop that sense of leadership here on campus as well, because it will extend out.
I did my program 4 years after graduation, and our cohort was about 22 people, and half of us were right out of college, and the other half had had some life experience. It was a really great mix, and the program works very well for both. I mean, you're living in community, so they don't actually take people who are much older than, you know, 28. But having my 4 years of experience was really helpful. First of all, I was working in college admission. So when I stepped in front of a classroom of seniors, I knew what the colleges were looking for. I knew what I needed to teach to get them where they needed to be in the college classroom, where they needed to be when they were applying for admission. Because ours was a college prep school, so everyone was headed to college. It was also very helpful to me to have already gotten through all of the, you know, what is it like to be an adult on your own? What is it like to not be in college? What's it like to have a regular work schedule and to not stay up till 1 a.m. every night? And so I'd already worked through a lot of that, and some of my peers who were coming right out of college struggled with that. And teaching is also very difficult, so there's a lot to struggle with, you know, beyond trying to get used to it. It works either way, and that's what I loved about Place Core, because there was so much support, so that whether we had been in life experience before or right out of college, with the program, with the other people in the program, everyone's working together, and, you know, we really could help people get where they needed to be.
I think I'll weigh in a little bit with this too. Many of the things I completely agree with. You know, the fact that I went right after I graduated, I think I was much more likely to pick up, leave it all, and go. Before I bought a car, before I had a house or an apartment or a single piece of furniture, it was so much easier for me to just pick up and do it at that point. I was also kind of using it as testing the waters a little bit with teaching. I was not an education student. I'd never really thought too much about that before. And to be honest, even though I was going all the way to China, halfway around the world, the thing I was the most nervous about was the teaching. I was really jazzed about the China part, but I really was a little nervous about teaching. But I thought during that year that I was giving myself that year to just kind of see how I felt about teaching, because it was something that I was starting to think a little bit more about. I ended up taking that path into higher education instead, but there was a little part of me that thought, gosh, you know, I'm teaching as a volunteer. Even if I'm terrible, they're getting what they pay for. That was my thought process. And it was a learning thing. I mean, my first couple of weeks teaching, I don't actually think I was very good. But by the end, I know that I was really connecting with the students, and they really were learning from my classes. So I learned a lot from that experience. I know that my students did too after that first couple of weeks, but it was a nice chance to try that out, to add that whole level of experience to what I could offer future jobs and future people that I worked with. And it was something on my resume that is always going to then call attention. I mean, it's always going to be something really interesting that people are going to ask me about.
Just one quick question. I'm trying to think of it in my mind up here. When a teacher assigns like some community work where you have to go into a community, service learning, do service learning. I did it even though it escaped my mind. But those programs and like getting involved with those are great speaking points during an interview. Those are great kind of experiences that you always carry with you. Besides just like, oh, I was a student. Tangible things that I did. I was the manager of the Outdoor Leadership Center here on campus, and then I did the
documentary.
Yeah, I don't know what it's called now anymore. I mean, for here, but
The link?
the link,
Extending
the
the
link,
link?
extending the link.
Link, okay.
That, yeah, I did the Del Micro Cambio project. So, and that, like as far as the grant work on that was huge for application processes, being able to write grants. So.
And if you're interested in teaching at all, get out and volunteer with students about the age that you want to teach. Because sometimes you might discover, no, I'd really rather work with a different age. I'd volunteered as a religion teacher for 7 years, and then I applied to Place Corps and wanted to teach high school. And that was the first question in the interview. Why is this? You know, and then I explained that I'd worked in admission. But really getting to know students, getting to know how they work, getting to know how you interact with them will be huge. It'll also look really good on the application, sound really good in the interview when you can say, well, here's what I did. I did this volunteer program. You know, if you can get into schools to observe the kind of classroom you might be interested in, do that. You know, if you have a friend who's a teacher or a parent or an aunt or uncle, get in there and observe the classroom and just see what it's like. Mm-hmm.
I know that in your program you could get a master's, and I'm an elementary education major now, and I was just wondering, and like your and of other ones, if you get your master's or if it's only you get your degree in education.
Yes. In TFA, sorry, I'm doing the Robert's rules, I guess. In TFA, depending on your placement, like Twin Cities, you enroll in Hamlet, and you have a master's in education. Actually, friends who teach for America Twin Cities Corps were then going on for that specialist degree. In Louisiana, I guess I can speak to that one. Across the nation, you'll probably be in some kind of master's program for certification. That's just the way the statutes work. For Louisiana, I was an alternative certification program where I took like 18 4-hour night classes, had a portfolio, and then that was the way I got certified, also based on some test scores stuff that my kids had. But one of the things about Louisiana that was really cool is you could enroll at LSU, go Tigers, but you can enroll in LSU and you could take any class you wanted, any degree for free. So I had friends that went on to do their master's in political science, or they were starting to look at maybe some English courses. They went on to be creative writing masters. So it really depends on the region, and on the website teachforamerica.org, they do a great job of explaining for this region what are the programs you're going to be involved in. Is grad school an option? Is it something you have to do? And will that be free?
I know in Los Angeles, the Teach for America students were in our classes. So they did the same licensure and certification program that we did.
The Peace Corps does have this master's, it's kind of this combo option of where you start, I think it has to be this way, like you start here in the States at one of the master's programs and you do that for a year, and then you volunteer for either a year or 2 years if you wanted to after that. And then, you know, once you go into the volunteer section or whatever you want to call it, that's where you do some sort of project where you finish your master's. Or like I mentioned before, you can do the Peace Corps, just do the conventional 2-year route, and then you get back and you've got a bunch of master's programs to choose from. I think there's a master's in education. There's like 20 different ones, and you can do that too.
A quick thought, she brought up a really great point I want to emphasize. Not only does the Peace Corps do that, where you come back and you have a lot of like preferential, like these master's programs really want you because of what you've exhibited as a Peace Corps volunteer, but Teach for America has a lot of those things as well, with different master's programs, but also with different jobs and different companies. You know, whether it's Deloitte, whether it's McKinsey, you know, really prestigious consulting firms, or even not Lehman. What's one of the huge, like some of the big money financial companies on Wall Street. I can't think of it right now.
Someday we'll go there, Joe. Yeah.
One day, Tom.
Yeah.
But they have incredible business partnerships, because I guess, as I alluded to for all these programs earlier, that idea that you were a leader of your classroom, that you got 30 kids to be quiet and learn, like imagine what you could do with adults. So that's a really great thing that each of these programs offer, is the idea that you know, you have desirable qualities that a company is looking for.
The short answer is no. The 20-second answer is, but I can use those experiences with College Possible and with JET to get into grad school. So I really had my pick of which grad school I wanted to go to. And honestly, out of the cohort of 30 students in my grad program, some of the stronger students are those that have lived abroad, taught abroad, worked abroad, or done some non-traditional teaching jobs as well. So
they don't pay for your grad school?
There's the ed stipend with AmeriCorps, but no.
Okay.
Yep.
And that ed stipend, just to let you all know, it's $5,500 one year, $5,500 next year. You can either like pay out some federal loans, or you can bank it and then you could apply it to a master's program.
Use it to pay for books, use it to pay for whatever on campus. So.
Yeah.
I have a question for Joe and Katie specifically. I know in programs like ACE and Pathways, you're living with community, and Joe, you said that you did as well, but I feel like for Teach for America and Peace Corps, it's not typical that you're living with other students.
Volunteers?
And how would you talk about that experience? And I feel like that could be, jumping into teaching programs like this is an extraordinarily stressful, challenging experience. And my brother's days right now, he said he wouldn't be getting into it right now without this experience.
Yeah, I can start. So the nice thing about the way that the Peace Corps structures your 2 years is actually your first 3 months. I mentioned before, I went with a group of 40 of us, and we were, for those first 3 months, we were in kind of a specific region of the country that had these little, I'm trying to think how I can easily explain this. First 3 months, we were actually quite close to one another. We were broken off in like 5 different little satellite villages. So I still lived with a host family, but like next door was one of my Peace Corps friends with another family. And for those 3 months, we were getting through our like 6 days a week language program. So we were starting to learn Albanian, culture training, for me, teaching training. And so that kind of was this cushion to get familiar with this crazy new place, new people, the language. Then month 4, we were all dispersed across the country into different cities and villages. For the most part, you're placed in a city or a village with one other volunteer, or if they're not exactly in your city or village, they're pretty close by. I had actually pretty much two other volunteers in my city with me. So it was really nice in that we both lived with different host families. We both kind of had our separate jobs, but we would meet for dinner, make dinner together 2 nights a week. We ended up, really growing our network together because it was 2 of us. So you're not alone. And it's kind of what you make it to. Definitely had some fellow Peace Corps volunteers who kind of ended up only hanging out with other Peace Corps volunteers. So you could do that if you wanted to. Otherwise, you could kind of have this nice balance of having a lot of, Albanian friends and with your host family and everything, and then also having fellow volunteers to help you get through some of those tough tougher times, bounce things off of each other, watch American movies together and all that. So, yeah.
So when I got down in Louisiana, in June, we went to Phoenix for our training. We call it Institute. And we were actually at ASU, and it was like 500 Teach for America people. I'll never be surrounded by that many smart people again in my life. And at that institute is where I found my housing, my roommates. I think almost 90% of Teach for America people live with other core members, as we call each other, because just as she said, like you have to, and like you allude, you have to be able to bounce and process what is going on. And we all lived in the same neighborhood, so there was probably like 25 of us, and we had like progressive dinners. We had fun, you know, like come on over for Friday night, like watch a movie, or like I bought a ping pong table, so we played ping pong. And then I guess another thing too of these programs that we all a lot of these programs, I think, PLACE, College Possible, the Peace Corps, they do what's called like clustering. So I was not the only Teach for America core member at my school. And I was not the only one kind of in that area of Baton Rouge where I could process things going on at school with those who are actually at the school with me. And then even create coalitions of like, I really want to get this program done. I need your department's help on this, or I just need you to show up. Can you be a part of this? And that created some of the more lasting systemic changes that we made at the school when I was there, because this idea of clustering, I think we all kind of talked about like, you know, not only do you need to process when you come home, but it's so nice to have somebody at the actual job site to process when you're like, whoa, what just happened? Okay, thanks for like getting me back on track, or like giving me that extra motivation while something was going on.
Let's give our panelists a round of applause. If it's all right if you want to stick around and take individual questions, otherwise help yourself to refreshments and leave your evals as you leave. Thank you very much for coming.